remember that gorilla at the end of that one weird episode? It's much more than it's pretending to be, and I'm rewatching the whole episode to prove it. The episode I Had an Accident starts with Patrick, Sandy, and Spongebob doing some gnarly underwater sandboarding. Patrick swiftly crashes and dies, or as he puts it, I got dead again. Well, not really. He actually dies inside a video game he's playing while sandboarding. Not recommended, by the way. But then he hits the same mountain again in the exact same way. This time in real life, with all his limbs exploding off his body. These two deaths of Patrick might seem like just another SpongeBob joke, but it's more significant than you think, and something we'll get back to later. When it's SpongeBob's turn to traverse the slopes, he confidently takes Sandy's advice to watch out for the mountain. But after getting distracted by Patrick, eating yellow sand and seemingly enjoying it, trying out a move called the Grouchy Squidward and narrowly missing a land tree, he careens off a cliff and falls upside down toward the seabed. Sandy yells at him to land on his bottom to break the fall, which, well, is probably better than landing on your head, even though he's wearing a helmet. Long story short, he breaks his butt, literally into a zillion pieces, like a Nokia 3310. If you know, you know. God damn, that's gotta hurt. One shard of yellow ass even impaled Sandy's helmet, and multiple pieces Patrick's skin, although he seems unfazed. Luckily, after a 20-hour surgery, the purple doctor fish managed to rebuild the puzzle which used to be SpongeBob's posterior, and tells him he's one of the lucky ones. If he hurts his butt one more time, he'll end up in the Iron Butt, a bizarre industrial-looking machine with far too many gauges and buttons. Anyway, the Iron Butt scares the living bejesus out of him, and walking home, he suddenly realizes there are much more butt-related activities in Bikini Bottom than he previously noticed, and it freaks him out. After being confronted with some overly friendly, congratulatory butt slapping in a football game and a 7-mile-long spanking machine, which is basically like a deconstructed human centipede with a buttload of slapping involved, SpongeBob proclaims, "Screw this," and puts his pineapple under the sea into lockdown mode. So SpongeBob, who's decided that the outside world is not his cup of tea anymore, vows to stay inside forever, and he makes plans to make it work for him. He's even found a very long spatula so he can work remotely. Because even though he's a sponge, he has great work ethics, okay? And eating, well, that's no problem. He can just, and I quote, filter feed, which is a thing that real sponges do, and just basically means eating water. Yummy. This is a massive mistake, in my opinion. SpongeBob decides he was wrong to go against the real nature of being a sponge for all this time. He even asks Sandy and Patrick to join him in his new lifestyle, but they don't see the appeal. But at least he's made a few safe new friends, a penny, a chip, and a used napkin. I'm not really sure what that napkin was used for. That shape is, well, never mind. Sandy then suggests finding an activity so exciting that SpongeBob will have no choice but to go outside. They try various things, like a cake that requires him to step outside to blow out the candles, jellyfishing, eating ice cream, jumping on trampolines, and even helping an elderly person with a bath. But nothing works, and everyone's frustrated. Except for the old person who just absolutely loves it, and SpongeBob who's made up a new song about how great it is indoors. Which leads to Sandy's plan that would break the fourth wall completely, as well as the SpongeBob reality for a little while. SpongeBob's a pretty good guy, always looking out for his friends, which is why Sandy thought this would work. If they dressed up Patrick in a gorilla suit and he pretends to attack Sandy, surely SpongeBob would come out running, ready to save the day. Instead, this happens. SpongeBob recognizes the gorilla costume as the one Patrick wore for Halloween the previous year. But then, out of nowhere, another Patrick appears, this time without a gorilla suit, but with a chocolate ice cream in hand, which confuses the chum out of Sandy as well as Patrick, who pulls down the zipper to reveal that he is indeed in the gorilla suit. So yeah, two Patricks. So the only thing that can make this whole thing make sense happens next. The new Patrick zips down and reveals himself to be a live-action gorilla. WTF, bro? And this gorilla's angry, dude. Like, Harambe angry. The gorilla stuffs the terrified Sandy and Patrick inside a bag and continues to slam, thrash, and batter them. This part does make me wonder whether it's a low-key metaphor about the fact that being inside, like inside the bag, is not always a safer option. But I'm not ready to put my money on it. Everything doesn't have to be a metaphor.
You're broke! You're f***ing poor!
Anyway, inside his house, SpongeBob wrestles with himself over whether he should help his friends. Okay, to be fair, he has this argument with the penny, the chip, and the very questionable napkin. But we know those inanimate friends are all in SpongeBob's mind, right? He argues with himself that his real friends didn't want to listen to him, and maybe they got what they deserved. But finally realizing that his friends wouldn't let him be pulverized by a gorilla if they were in his shoes, he goes outside to confront the lunatic ape, and Gary eats Chip, which is much more important than just a snail eating a chip. I'll explain soon. Almost immediately, outside, SpongeBob's face is harassed by a rogue piece of paper, and as he screams, "Get off of me!" Squidward just goes about watering his plants, almost like there's nothing happening behind him. No gorillas, no nothing.
We don't care.
Let me tell you something.
SpongeBob defeats the piece of paper, and just as he emerges in a moment of premature victory, he's picked up by the gorilla and torn in half. In this moment, he realizes a few profound things. His fear of the outside was absurd, gorillas are scarier than being outside, and also...
You know what I don't understand, though? What? What's a gorilla doing underwater in the first place?
SpongeBob's conundrum confuses the gorilla so much that he stumbles over his words in a very nerdy voice and then rides away into the sunset on a pantomime horse called George. Yeah, that just happened. Like some lost Mighty Boosh clip. And then lastly, we zoom out as the episode ends, and we see a confused and somewhat disguised real-life family watching the episode on their television, who then switches it off. What the hell was up with that gorilla? So the main theory most of the internet agrees with is that the gorilla wasn't really there. And the reason people believe this is pretty straightforward. Although Bikini Bottom's rules are weird and abstract, there are still rules. And one of those rules is that things from above the surface cannot breathe underwater without some kind of apparatus. For instance, Sandy has her diving suit, and even the tree in the beginning of the episode has diving gear. But the gorilla doesn't have any, meaning either he's got a very long breath or he's not really there. The other clue is that Squidward is watering his plants, as if it's just any other day, not noticing what's happening behind him. However, it could also be that he's so desensitized by SpongeBob's past shenanigans that he just doesn't give a damn anymore. The big question is rather why? Why is there an imaginary but also real gorilla in Bikini Bottom? Some fans believe that the writers and producers just got bored of the level of absurdity in the series and tried to increase it just to freak us out. But I believe something a bit more out there. I believe SpongeBob broke the show's reality. We get a taste of the different realities present early in the episode, where Patrick witnesses his own accident, or death, almost like a glitch in the Matrix. And then again at the end, where we as the viewer basically sees another version of ourselves, the viewer, watching the same show. And they also look confused about the gorilla, making them feel real. Makes you wonder if there's another layer watching you, watching the people watching the show, doesn't it? In this one episode, we have at least 4 layers of reality overlapping. SpongeBob's world, the gorilla, and the horse's weird world, the world of the real TV people, and our layer of reality. The fourth wall gets broken multiple times, but I believe there's a reason it happens in this episode specifically, and not in many other episodes. SpongeBob broke the equilibrium. And what do I mean by that? By becoming agoraphobic, having this fear of the outside world, he starts reverting to a real, normal sea sponge, something he should not be in the world of SpongeBob SquarePants. In his reality, he's supposed to be absurd and nonsensical, not a boring sea sponge. He stops going outside and walking, no longer has real friends, and starts hanging out with inanimate objects, like a sponge in our world would. Most importantly, he begins to eat like one. He even uses the real term filter feed, which is the way sponges in our world eat, by drawing in water and filtering out the tiny particles of food suspended in it. thereby throwing the whole show's logic. I believe he tipped the scale so much to the side of normality that it had to be tipped back to absurdism. Hence, the gorilla and the weird horse showing up. The real moment that the scale tipped back to Bikini Bottom's normality wasn't only when Spongebob went outside and confronted the gorilla, but it actually started when Gary ate Chip, establishing that the chip is just a chip and nothing more. This signals that everything is about to go back to normal. Or am I just reading too much into all of this? Multiple layers of reality and an absurd equilibrium? Did SpongeBob break his show's reality, summoning a gorilla from another reality, or do you have a better theory? Let me know in the comments if you think I'm crazy and just seeing things, or if I'm onto something.